welcome to Reentry. In this video, I'm going to go through some of the key features of the new 0.99.67 patch. This patch mainly consists of updates related to attitude control, the inertial platform, and the calculation of the current attitude of the craft, and then quite a lot of improved features related to some of these core features. Keep in mind that attitude control is probably one of the most used systems on board a spacecraft because it's in control of most of the guidance algorithms and also know what direction your spacecraft is currently pointing. So this patch contains a few things in Gemini and also a few things in Apollo. So I'm going to go through every one of them in this video. So first of all, we are now loaded into Gemini and we are in orbit around Earth. And the first improvement that I want to cover is the new rate command logic. So now I'm in the Gemini craft and I'm going to switch into rate command. And in rate command, I'll need to make sure that I have the ohms on, so we can provide fuel to the ohms thrusters. And these thrusters are the one responsible for, giving the attitude control capabilities while the Gemini craft is in orbit. And keep in mind that these changes that I'm about to show you is also available in the RCS mode as well. So now that I've switched into rate command and I deflect the joystick's input, so I do a deflection here, you can see that I'm starting to build up a rate command. And now I'm holding down the pitch down deflection, and you can see that it built the rates up to the target rate, which is a maximum target rate of the rate command system. And when I release the stick's deflection, it should stop the rates automatically. So I'm going to do that now. Now you can see that the rates has been stopped. So the rate command mode allows me to select what direction I want the craft to maneuver towards by using the stick deflection, and it will try to get there using quite kind of controlled amount of fuel, because you won't be constantly firing the jets. You'll build up the angular rate towards a set target rate, which is kind of the maximum rate, and then once this rate has been met for a given axis, it will basically just stop firing the thruster, then drift all the way until you release the joystick deflection. So I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to pitch up. Now that you see that the maximum rate has been met, so no thrusters are firing, and then if I release, it's going to stop the rate. So for those who are experienced with Gemini in reentry from before, might have gained some experience related to how the rate command mode works, and you might have noticed that if I build up a rate in a specific attitude, it would basically start to also build up kind of rates in other axes as well as you move. Then you had to kind of constantly compensate for that. This has now been fixed, so the input now fires the correct thrusters on the exterior, and it plays the audio file for thrust logic firing as well. So you can hear that it builds up, it plays the sound effect when I build up the rate, and then also when it stops the rate automatically. So that's the rate command in Gemini. The other update this patch rolls out into Gemini is an improved acquisition light when you are kind of approaching the Agena target vehicle. So just make sure that I've centered I'm in radar mode, attitude. Now with the pointing needles of the F-die or the attitude indicator centered, I should now have Agena centered in my window. So let's see that. You can see Agena is down there. One of the issues that we've had before, which is more of an on the annoying side of things, was that if I now go into checklists and I can go into Agena commands, and let's make sure that I have the encoder is on. So I should be able to now send commands to Agena, and I want to enable the acquisition lights. So that's 251. So 2, 5, and then so the outer one is the first digit. This one is the second, so 2, 5, and then 1. Now I'm sending the command to Agena, and if I now go into the view here, you can see that the acquisition light is now blinking in front here. Previously, you would see this huge cookie rendered around it, and once you've translated closer and closer to Agena, and I'm going to travel down there now, that cookie would just continue to kind of increase its size, and at one point it would be so big that it kind of made the maneuvering even hard. But keep in mind that, of course, this light should not be enabled once we're this close, because this is a very bright light. But I'm going to keep it on for now, just to kind of showcase this feature. You can see that the rate command is now very solid. I'm not building up yaw or pitch or anything else but roll, because roll is the only axis that I'm deflecting on the stick right now. You can see that the light is now much more relaxing to look at compared to what it used to be. Another thing that I want to just briefly mention is that I've in this patch corrected an issue where I've seen quite a lot of reports related to the Skylab mission, where the Skylab would kind of mimic your attitude adjustments when the command module approached the Skylab before docking. This would basically cause the Skylab to rotate and build angular rates similar to what the command module had, making it almost impossible to dock. And I know that some of you, which is quite impressive to be honest, has managed to dock with it even with these attitude issues. This had to kind of be fixed. The biggest problem with this issue is that I was unable to reproduce it myself, and quite a lot of players didn't really have this issue. But I recently found a hunch into what the issue could have been, and I've tried to make a fix to that and basically rebuilt the entire docking logic and relative positioning of the Skylab compared to the command module. And I tried to roll that out on the alpha floor, and some of the players who have had this issue have now reported that it works as intended, and they've been able to dock with Skylab. So I hope that this will work for you, and please let me know if you had this issue and whether if it's fixed or not. The next system update is around the Apollo command module and the Lunar module IMUs. This is the inertial measurement unit, which basically stores the orientation or the relative orientation of the craft. So you can see that the attitude indicator here shows me my attitude. But what is this attitude relative to? Well, this attitude is relative to the platform, the inertial platform that I just mentioned. So this is the IMU, and it shows me a given attitude relative to the inertial platform. This inertial platform can be reoriented, and you've done that quite a lot of times if you're already familiar with Apollo in re-entry. You've done it when you perform burns, you've done it when you do an ascent, you've probably done it when you do re-entry, and so on. So the entire logic around this IMU has now been rewritten, and I've been able to finally, after a couple of brutal weeks where I've been dealing with the math and how these things are calculated. So I just want to quickly make a shout out to Amaryllis, who's been helping me a lot with this, both testing, feedback, teaching me how it should operate, and I've been trying to, make this behavior as correct as possible. So what's new? So I'm currently showing this attitude here, and if I now pull up verb 16 and then noun 20, this key will show me this attitude in a digital format. You can see that I'm at 180 degrees ish in roll, and my pitch is 195 point. So if I now start to maneuver the craft, let's go to, for example, pitch 180, which is here. You can see that the noun 20 is now showing me a pitch of 180, which is R2, the middle register, or register 2. This is register 1, this shows me roll, and then register 3 shows me yaw. So if I now yaw to 330 here, and I've also included rates in timescale, you can see that I can timescale to get quicker to the target attitude. Now you can see that I'm close to 330 in yaw, and pitch remained stable at 180, and you can see that pitch is still 180. And now if I maneuver this up to, let's say, 150 in pitch, and now I still want to kind of maintain 330, watch the attitude kind of go in and kill the rates here. You can now see that my pitch is 150, and then yaw is still 330, close to it. So now you can see that this attitude here between the attitude indicator and the what the CMC shows is now rock solid, and should be now very realistic. Let's try a more edge attitude here. For example, 120 in pitch and 300 in yaw. You can see that yaw is now 300 and pitch is close to 120. If I now maneuver back to plus 90 degrees, and I'm going to cover this in some detail just because this is very important for any of you who are trying to play Apollo. You can see that this roll indicator here has also changed, and it has become much more stable in terms of showing me my actual roll relative to my inertial platform. Now I'm at about 90 in pitch, and for those of you who have been playing re-entry before, you know that I kind of hit a semi gimbal lock at pitch 90 and pitch 270. This has now all been fixed, and the attitude should be rock solid all over the ball, with the exception of the area where gimbal lock is. You can see that my roll is 990, and you can see the roll index working well. And if I kill my race now, you can see it roll. If I now would maneuver the craft kind of out from this belly band here, which are the areas where, you know, this roll index is really built for, because it's hard to now see my roll because you don't have that 0 in your kind of belly band thing helping you. You can see that the roll index is still rock solid in terms of where it's pointing, and it's very easy to me to directly see this roll of my craft relative to this needle. So if I now try to 0 my roll, and I'm at 19 pitch, again, this was an attitude that would just make this entirely the thing go crazy in my previous implementation. So now I'm at pitch kind of 90, and yaw is 30. Another thing worth pointing out is that I've added the gimbal lock light here, and I've remade all of these textures, so you can see that the textures is now much better once we reach kind of the poles of the sphere in terms of the UV coordinates. Now that I'm getting close to yaw 70, you can see that the gimbal lock light is on, indicating that I'm now in an area where the attitudes are slightly unstable, and things might cause the gimbals to kind of align among themselves, making me lose attitude. I do support the attitudes inside of gimbal lock, so this will not yet happen in re-entry, but I'm starting easily by kind of making sure that this gimbal lock light is stable. So you can see that now I'm out of the red zone, and that gimbal lock is off. I'm going to traverse it here so it turns on. Then there it is, off again. So what does this really mean? Well, it means that you now have a very stable attitude reference, and the translation between the attitude of the craft to the command module computer is also very solid. This allows me to improve a lot of the other things that you know, uses attitude in re-entry. So this is, you know, the roll program during ascent, the entire guidance program during ascent, all of the auto maneuvering, attitude references, everything that has a reference to the attitude in one way or another is now improved. And I would say that this would basically levels up the entire Apollo experience for a lot of you, just with this kind of, I wouldn't say simple change, because it was brutal to write this, but it was a needed update, and I'm very, very happy to see it working as good as it does right now. If I now jump into the Lunar module, you can see that I've also updated the Lunar module attitude indicator texture, so the ball is now more detailed and has a lot of more information, and this wider belly band and so on. But I've also included fixes to the IMU in the Lunar module, so I can turn on the lights a little bit more. Verb 16, now 20. And you can see that this one is also now working, just as it does with the command module. So let's get into better attitude. So I'm going to get into pitch 180 and then 0 in roll and yaw. Close enough, so you can see 0, 0, and then 180 in pitch. Now, gimbal lock works differently in the Lunar module. So if I now maneuver towards the zone where gimbal lock is in the command module, you can see that this is a completely legal zone. You don't need to worry too much about anything in this attitude here. The gimbal lock zone in the Lunar module is if you get into kind of an attitude that looks like this. I'm going to apply some roll rate, and the roll rate here is where the gimbal lock danger happens. So let me see both of them. You can see that now I'm in gimbal lock zone, which means that this is what gimbal lock would look like in the Lunar module. So just be aware of this attitude. I do support it, but I'm going to roll out a setting that will be added to the realism options that can enable the more correct gimbal lock logic, where the gimbal or the IMU would get into a course align mode, and you will see the no attitude flag here whenever you are in gimbal lock. Okay, the next feature that I want to show is the auto maneuvering. So all of these changes improves a key element of any Apollo mission, and that is auto maneuvering. Using the guidance computer to get into an attitude. And previously, you would switch this up to CMC mode to auto, and you're in spacecraft control into CMC. Right now, you might have noticed previously that the CMC would start to issue thrusting commands to get me into the attitude of some internally stored vector somewhere in the CMC. Now I've changed this logic, so once you enter the CMC mode auto, you will kind of go into this mode here, attitude hold, but you are in CMC auto, which means that there's an attitude hold flag in the CMC. And if I now start to maneuver the craft, you can see that I'm now in attitude hold mode. So if I do stick deflections, I will build up the rates, and now my rates is at this point here, and my scale is at this setting. And if I release the deflection, it will stop the rates. And this is what you've used to. But the new thing here is during attitude hold, this applies for both this setting and this one, is that if I now hold in my rates, and I do a build up a rate in yaw as well, and maybe roll. If I now let go of the roll deflection, but I maintain the other ones, you can see that now attitude hold stops the rate in roll. And if I continue pitch and I now stop the yaw deflection, you can see that it now stops. And if I release the stick, then the craft comes to a hold at the previous deflected attitude. And I'm now in CMC auto. So this is kind of a fusion between, automatically getting the craft to target to a set attitude and attitude hold. So whenever you're not commanding the computer to say, hey, maneuver to this attitude, you can use this as a attitude hold type of logic. It will basically revert to that. So let's try an auto maneuver. So verb 49, enter. And I'm going to maneuver into 0. So everything's 0. This is an attitude that you are very used to from auto maneuvering whenever you're performing burns in re-entry. Now I'm in CMC auto. The control is CMC, and I have direct set to off. And I'm going to hit Pro and say, okay, verb 50, do you want to proceed with the auto maneuver towards this attitude? Yes. Now the auto maneuver logic has started, and you can see verb 06 flashing. This means that the auto maneuver is in progress. Once verb 50 is displayed here, the auto maneuver is complete, and you are back into this attitude hold mode instead of CMC, or instead of having an active auto maneuvering thing going on. So now I can timescale. And keep in mind that during timescale, the autopilot is kind of set to hold. It will maintain the rates, and the rates will increase based on the timescale, but it will not try to apply anything. But now you can see that I've reached the target attitude. It's within 5 degrees. That's my selected deadband. And you can see that verb 50 is now showing. So if I now perform another auto maneuver, and this time I want to get into 45 degrees plus in pitch, I hit proceed and then accept. Now it's going to start to maneuver towards this attitude. But if I'm in the middle of this maneuver, start to deflect the switch, and I'm not in direct, then you can see that it cancels the maneuver. Verb 50 is now showing, and I can resume the maneuver by just hitting Pro here. So now every time I do a stick deflection, it will cancel that maneuver. If I switch to CMT mode hold, you can see that it also cancels the maneuver. Another thing that I want to show is, for example, if I'm now in free and I command an auto maneuver and I hit Pro, you can see that it stays at verb 50 every time I try to command the auto maneuver, because I'm not in CMC auto. In CMC auto, then it performs and commands the auto maneuver, and everything else works as you're normally used to, with the exception of these minor details that I've been going through. And once again, thanks a lot to Amaryllis, who's been helping me with this, teaching me this logic and providing me with this fine, nice to have details to make this mode more and more usable. Let me also finally, in terms of the IMU, show you an attitude. Oops. Targeting that was previously not possible. So if I do verb 23 and plus 45 on this axis as well, in the previous bits you would be able to reach any pitch or any yaw as long as you didn't have anything in the other one. So you would say pitch 45, that would work, and pitch 90 would work, and so on, as long as you didn't have anything in yaw. But now, if we do 45 degrees in yaw and 45 degrees in pitch, and I command the auto maneuver, use timescale to reach into you can now see that I'm at 45 degrees pitch, 45 degrees in yaw, and with a deadband of 5 degrees. So we are now at the target attitude. Keep in mind that verb 48 is used to configure that target deadband. So if I would go in here and say that I want the deadband on 0.5 degrees, go ahead and set that, and then command the auto maneuver again. You can see that it tries to get into that attitude with a much higher precision, now at a 0.5 degree deadband. Okay, the next thing I wanted to show you is an update that I've done in terms of the auto maneuvering. So I've showed you how auto maneuvering has improved, but if I now go into the burn planner and I say that I want to plan a burn at phase 0, I'm at 287 and counting right now, so I'm quite soon at phase 0. And phase 0, that is the location of PE. And I want to burn 100 feet per second in the prograde direction. You will now see some additional data points here, and one of them is your burn attitude. So it now says that the relative to the current inertial platform, the refs mat that these IMUs are aligned to, I need to maneuver to this target attitude to perform the burn. When I hit request, it will also uplink the preferred refs mat for this burn, which will allow you to use program 52 option 1 to align the IMUs with the burn direction. If you opt in to do it this way, and this is the recommended way and the way that you've always done it previously in re-entry, because I didn't support any attitude in the auto maneuvering system yet, but now I do. So now you can choose. Either you can use program 52 option 1 to align the IMU to the burn direction and then use an auto maneuver to target 000 to reach the burn direction. Or you can say that I don't want to do any alignment. I want to use my current attitude, my current inertial platform, and then it tells you to get into pitch 150 and yaw 0. So let us try that. I'm going to hit request, and now you can see that this attitude is also communicated to you on the pad as well. So we should see 151, and you can see these what these values mean by going into the crew members and going into the P30 maneuver pad, and you can see that roll pitch yaw is these values here. So you can just follow along with all of this. So we have the weight, the trim, the time of ignition, the delta V, and then you have the attitude. So 151. The other one is a 0. So this is a very simple attitude in terms of, you know, where my alignment previously was. But if I didn't want to do any alignment, I could just go ahead and use that attitude. This communication message has also been updated to reflect these changes. So if I now go into verb 3730, for example, and I set up for the burn delta V of 100, this is the resulting orbit, and it should be quite close to what we've seen here. But keep in mind that this is using slightly different calculations and different functions than the burn planner. I can go ahead and proceed with that, and now we're counting down with 18 minutes and 20 seconds left for the burn. Now I'm going to go into verb 49, and I'm going to change this into the target attitude, and if I want to be really specific, I will first say roll 0.47, so that's plus 47, so this will now go all the way back, and you can think of this as a decimal here, so 047. The next one is 15085, 15085. So there's a decimal here, 150 degrees point 85. Enter. And yaw was just all 0. Then I can go ahead with the auto maneuver, and please be aware of gimbal lock. You might traverse it during auto maneuvers. In this case, since you are in CMC Auto with these new changes, you can always try and just go around it yourself. Timescale. Then I'll release the stick and hit proceed again. Then timescale. there we have my attitude. And we should be good to go. So if we do verb 16 on 20, you can see that my attitude is within that deadband limit in all of these attitudes here. So let's try that burn using very kind of offhand procedures. I can now go into verb 37, enter program 40, and it's going to trim the maneuver. But since we were already close, you can see that we are all good on the attitude. And I always recommend you to do verb 49 and use that to maneuver into the attitude before starting program 40. And I'm going to skip the gimbal checks, enter, and just timescale. Then I'm going to open up the map. You can see that this is my location on the moon. And I'm going to just pull this bar up here so we can see my attitude here. And please see that remember that I haven't used any program 52 option 1 to perform this burn. Okay, and we're 15 seconds away from the burn now. And at 5 seconds before ignition, you can see that I am very prograde. Things are looking good in terms of the attitude. And I hit proceed at 5 seconds. Engine is on. You can see SPS thrusting. You can see the orbits building up. You can see that I'm quite close to the target orbit that I was planning in my burn planner. And this is all with this new logic, with a more stable IMU and more stable auto maneuvering, and the support for maneuvering towards the burn attitude in the burn planner. I do hope that you like these new IMU changes. Next, I'm going to cover a couple of other systems inside of Apollo. Let us continue with the next feature, and that is a quick brief at the checklists. So I've added a few more checklists into the operations handbook sections. These are kind of fully detailed and kind of larger checklists compared to the timeline checklists. The timeline checklists are the actual checklists that flew on board the Apollo 15 craft and applies to kind of the way that I've implemented the command module and the Lunar module in re-entry. So you can see that the timeline checklist has a very sequential set of structure here with the pre-launch, ascent, insertion, and you have all the insertion checks in sequence, and they are all runnable. And you can queue everything up. And then TLI, transposition and docking, pressurization, the ejection from the S4B. And then I have a lot of the system checks added into kind of sections in between here. So you have propulsion, EPS, ECS, caution warning, you have pre and post sleep checklists, and then you have guidance and control, which is a lot of the DAP setup, crew defined maneuver, which you're used to course align. System in terms of the guidance and control, powering things up and down, and then different programs. So you have navigation, pre-thrust, thrusting, alignments, and then we have P20, which is P2C or brake. So a lot of these timeline checklists here is new to this patch, and over the last couple of patches I've been adding a lot of these, as you can see. So if you want to follow an even more realistic Apollo mission, you can use the timeline checklist instead of the Operations Handbook checklist. They are quite similar, but there are differences and there are deviances between those, and this can be a little bit easier to follow in terms of timeline, but only after you learned the procedures and learned how the craft works and how to operate it in re-entry. So that's the first thing that I wanted to cover in this chapter of this video. The next one is that I've added a basic implementation of program 20. And program 20 allows us to enter the PTC role or the barbecue role, where you would enter a slow angular rate around a set axis, and it will start to roll so that the sun kind of heats up the exterior of the craft slowly around the entire thing, so you wouldn't stay still relative to the sun, so that the sun would kind of start to fry one side of the craft while the other one turns to ice. So you would enter this roll that will kind of barbecue the craft like a sausage on a grill. Orb rate is similar, and orb rate allows us to build up a rate that allows the craft to orbit around the Earth if you're kind of in low Earth orbit, and you want the craft to stay relative to the local vertical, local horizontal. You can use the orb rate to say that I want to have a slow orb rate. I think it's about 4 degrees per minute in pitch, and that would allow us to rotate with the horizon. So how does this work? So let us go into program 20. First thing that you do is to enter verb 37, enter 20, and you will be asked of the option. So there's a couple of options here. The two that I support is to target a select star ID. That will make the craft maneuver towards that star ID and center it in the COS, for example, or you can select that, you know, the star should be centered around another axis of the craft. For example, the optics bay, or you know, point the SPS engine towards the star, etc. And if you would like to have this option, then let's go back to the general checklist for this program. So you have the options of P20, and that's option 1 and 3, and this allows you to select a star ID to point towards. So I'm going to show that soon, but right now I want to go into the rotate option, and this checklist also covers how that works, but for now I'm just going to use the PTC orb rate of P20. So load 2 in R2, so you can see that 0406 is now flashing. You see R1 is 24, which is a tracking option, R2 is 0. So then I can go in and say that I want to load 2 into R2, then hit proceed. And now I need to specify what axis in yaw and pitch I want to build up the roll rate around. So if I leave this at all 0, that's yaw, pitch, and roll 0, that means that I'm going to build up a roll rate. If I would have, for example, 90, I could build up a pitch rate or a yaw rate, depending on what you want to achieve. For example, a PTC, an orb rate would kind of build up a rate around the craft on this kind of, if you imagine a vector pointing out on this side, you would build up a rate around that axis, so the nose would pitch at a steady rate around Earth. But anyways, let's focus on building up that PDC. So I'm going to hit proceed here. And then this one will select how many degrees per second, and I'm going to leave it at 0.3 degrees per second. And then make sure that I'm all in auto here. And hit proceed. And then you need to specify when that maneuver should start. And if you leave it all at 0, it will start immediately. Or if you provide a mission elapsed time of when you want this procedure to start, let's say 5 hours into the mission, you can enter it here. I want to start immediately. And now you can see that the PDC roll has started. And I've built up a rate. And with that rate build up, you can go ahead and just disable all of these thrusters, and you could even go into SES mode 3. It will basically just drift like that. And keep in mind that I do support timescale in the rates now, so you will get kind of more realistic positioning if you're using timescale while in PTC roll. Anyways, let's get back into the craft, and I've just put in all of the thrusters either to MNA or MNB. It doesn't really matter what you do right now, because I want to go into the next part. And before we start with that, let me hide the seats, toggle seats, and then make sure that the optics is on. Then I'll zero the optics. I keep it to slave to sextant, manual mode, and a high rate. You can see that I'm now in the optics and it's zeroing everything out. That's what my intention is. So what I want to show you now is the next part of patch, which is an experimental version of Cislunar mid-course navigation measurement, or Cislunar navigation. And this allows me to kind of superimpose a star with the horizon of Earth, or the near or far side of the moon, in order to update my state vector. And this is currently an experimental version where I'm trying to figure out a way to implement all of this in reentry, because there's quite a lot of advanced mechanics in this. So let's just get started. So this maneuver requires my optics to be on, and I've already done that, so I'm going to remove the 0 flag, and I'm going to leave it in manual. And then I'll get on some of the numerics here, so we can use this key here instead. So we're 3720. Obviously the wrong one. 37, enter 23. So the first thing is that we are going to get a calibration star, and this is going to commence an auto maneuver. So let's make sure that we are all good in terms of auto maneuvering. We'll hit proceed on that. Then we are going to load in a star code, and let's find a star that is nearby. So for example, Deneb 43. This is where we want to form our calibration. Then just 43 Deneb. You can see the star ID here. 43 Deneb. Speed. Then we can perform an auto maneuver to maneuver so that this star is centered. So I'm going to allow that. Speed. Now we are leaving the optics as 0. So this means that the optics are 0, 0 in its shaft and trunnion. And now the craft tries to auto maneuver to within the dead band to target towards this star. So now I can switch into 0 to off. We set the speed to medium, and then continue with the checklist. Well, 50 auto maneuver is complete. Next, I need to make a mark on this star. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to move the optics down to Deneb, and you can see that I now switch into the sextant. And what I can do here is to superimpose the star with the sextant. So then I can make sure that the sextant and the star offsets are all 0. But since this is perfect in re-entry, you can just go ahead and mark the star as you desire. But if we now go into attitude hold and 0 these optics, then maneuver to center the star perfectly. Now I'm using RCS to maneuver. And if I now just want to show you what this superimpose means. If I now have the star centered and I allow movements, and I go into the sextant, set the speed to low, and I kind of slightly pull down from the star, so now I see that the star is not centered, but the sextant has 2 kind of optics that are visible, and one of them is always pointing straight relative to the optics bay, and then this other one, which I can slew around, is kind of the line of sight of the sextant, and the other one is the landmark line of sight. And you can look at both of these cameras, or one of them, by superimposing. So you have the star line of sight here, which is the one that I can move, and the landmark, which is the one that is pointing directly in the direction of the bay. So if I superimpose and look at both of them, I want these two to be superimposed so that they are kind of the same. And then I maneuver. And this is a good mark, so then I'll hit mark. And you can see that I have an offset of, was it 0.002? Let me just go. 0.002 degrees of my superimposing skills. So now I have 0687, and I can skip that. Now we have 0670 showing, and this is the star that I want to use. So what I'm going to do next is to orient the spacecraft so that I find a star which is somewhere nearby on the horizon of Earth. So now I'm going to orient the craft. So I point the optics bay towards Earth just to make this all a little bit easier. And I'm going to enter the optics. I'm going to zero everything. Now you can see that there is a star, so I'm going to maneuver towards it. So that's 45. The next thing that I'm going to do then is to remember 45. And if I now open up the checklist and go down to the area where I'm at, which is verb 06, noun 70, you can see the star ID and the horizon. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to use star ID, and that was 45. So 21 plus 45. And then it wants verb 23, which is the horizon, and I'm going to select the star Earth horizon. And then near and far is basically, this is the star. So do I want to measure or superimpose the star with its near horizon? So if you draw a line from the star towards the center of the Earth, does it go through the near horizon, or do you want to measure it against the far horizon? And the reason is that you would like to select the near or far horizon depending on where the sun is. So you want to select the day side so you can see the atmosphere, and then select the horizon where the sun is relative to that line. So if the sun would be on the opposite side, I would select far side with the star ID, or the near side here. So now I'm going to select the near side, and that is going to be 1 star Earth near horizon, so 00110. 23 00110, enter, and then proceed. Now we can see 5025 maneuver request. Hit proceed. Proceed. Should already be in auto. So enter. And now it wants me to mark. So right now what I need to do is to superimpose the position of the horizon. So I'm gonna maneuver using attitude hold to kind of get that into an area where I can see the atmosphere. You can, for example, say that I want it to be somewhere here. And it doesn't need to be kind of centered. You just need to see the atmosphere. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is to step out. I'm going to make sure the optics are 0 and I switch to off. And then I'll set the optics to a 25-degree offset. Now you can see that the point that I was looking at previously is now at this 0 point, and this one is offsetted 25 degrees. I'm going to switch into high, and then I'm going to roll this around with this offset of 25 degrees so that the line between the point in the Earth horizon is close to this, and you can see that I'm going to try and get this more 90-degree. Oh, there we go. And now you can see that this point here is where I'm aiming at with the craft or the optics bay, and this is the star. So if I now go into the optics here, you can make sure that I can see the horizon, and then I'm going to superimpose the two. So now I'm going to try and bring that star into the horizon. So you can see that if I superimpose, this is the horizon and this is the other camera. If I see both of them at the same time, I'm going to pull this all the way up to 45. You can see that I'm having some rates, so I'm going to pull this down so I can see the horizon well. Then I'm going to pull that star into. Keep in mind that I don't need to center it inside of the boas here, or the target. I just need it into that point in the horizon. So there we have one. Now I've superimposed that star with the horizon, which means that now I have the angle between the horizon and that star. I'm going to hit mark. Added all of these tips into the checklist here. And then this one kind of gives me the results in the state vector update, and this is something that I'm working on now, but you can see that here it's 0649. It will show me kind of the delta position, so I think it's 0.47 nautical miles in radial position, and then a delta velocity of 6.8 feet per second is what it suggests me to update the state vector with, and I'm going to hit proceed and it's going to update. But keep in mind that this update doesn't really matter anymore at this moment in reentry, because my state vector is always perfect. But yeah, that covers the main aspects of this update, and I know that I kind of mixed what's new thing together with the tutorial in the end here, and that is because I just wanted to kind of completely cover what all these IMU changes, attitude changes, calculation changes, and all this has its say for kind of the end product, where, you know, attitude is something that you use all the time in reentry, and it's really, really nice to see that this is finally getting more stable and more usable in more aspects of the flight. So with that, I want to say thank you for watching, and I do hope that you enjoy reentry.